The Batteries Included podcast is brought to you with United Chargers and their Grizzly range. The next generation of Grizzly is here. Meet the Grizzly Ultimate, the most powerful AC Level 2 charger for home use. With a maximum current of 80 amps, that's 19.2 kilowatts. Your vehicle could be charged up to twice as fast as a standard level 2 and up to 15 times faster than a level 1. And of course, it's Wi-Fi connected, so you can take control of your home charging, view stats, set a charging schedule, take part in demand response programs, and control your charger remotely. And that joins the lineup alongside the original Grizzly Classic. The Grizzly Duo, designed to charge two vehicles at the same time. The Grizzly Mini, a portable charging station. And the Grizzly Smart, a revolutionary smart EV charger. Those chargers can adjust the current from 16 amps up to 40 amps, that's 9.6 kilowatts. Plus, the Grizzly Ranger IP67 rated, built in Canada, and with the highest quality materials. You can order yours right now. Go to unitedchargers.com, that's unitedchargers.com. The batteries include...
No. We don't want it twice. We don't want it. I mean, we love our sponsor. Is that the time? Look at that. I better get going with this. Hello and welcome to the Batteries Included podcast. It's almost Saturday, but it is still Friday, October 25th, episode number 60. On today's show, we'll be talking about the reveal of the Scout Terra and the Traveller SUV, why the Ford CEO Jim Farley drives a Xiaomi and loves it, and the 2025 Ford Mustang Mach-E gets updates for the new model year. I'm your host, Martin Lee, from the EV News Daily Podcast. Joining us today is the splendiferous Mr. Tom Logany, Senior Editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have Dominic Yoni, long-time EV journalist and host of the YouTube channel Drive Electric with Dominic. And, of course, Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Outer Spec Studios, where he produces high-voltage videos for a number of YouTube channels. Apologies for my absence last week. My 2-year-old was snotty and coffee, and that's not a good combination, and so I was on dad duty. So thank you for your patience while I was off last week. Well, 2 years ago, the Scout Motors brand was reinvigorated by its new owners, Volkswagen. If you wonder how they owned that, well, their truck bit, Traton, made a purchase, the old Navistar, and they seemed to, somewhere in their back catalogue, as a line item, had the Scout brand. And so it's back, and a new company revealing two new vehicles yesterday, the Scout Traveller, which is the SUV, and the Terra, which is the pickup truck. The vehicle designs were the most important thing here. Billions of dollars of investments hang on them, and we get to see the interiors and exteriors. Yes, they were prototypes. No, the video reviewers on YouTube couldn't touch and poke and prod. They had the handlers doing that and opening doors and things, but still very, very exciting. Going back to the old International Harvester name from 1961 to 1980. So lots of, talk of, Americana and bringing back a legendary brand, which, maybe over egging the pudding just a little bit. Was it legendary? Certainly had a big fan base. Lots of people that have owned them absolutely love it. But I'm not sure how many of those diesel fans or petrol fans from back in the day will be queuing up for one of these newfangled electric vehicles. Okay, I'll run through the specs. We'll get into it because Kyle was there. And so 350 miles of range, under £60,000 dollars retail price. If the federal tax credit is still around in 2027, then you can take that off as well. So just over 50 grand. 0 to 60, 3.5 seconds, 2,000 pounds of payload, which is some serious business. Towing, 7,000 on the Traveller, that's the SUV, and 10,000 pounds on the Terra. A range extender version with a smaller battery for 500 miles of range or so. An e-Rev, very popular in China. And the Ram Charger, which is the same technology as well. Kyle, you were at the event. Rumours are you may have placed a pre-order already. What was it like seeing these two vehicles revealed? Which did you prefer, if any? And what did you order?
So I have to say I was at the Scout event, but I actually left before the unveiling. So I didn't get to see them in person.
Amazing.
And, yeah, it was just, I guess the reason I left was I went there I didn't really look at what the heck was going on before I left. And I flew to Tennessee to see what was going on. And, it was a huge event. And so it was like basically it felt like I arrived like 24 hours too early, and I was just going to sit in a hotel room. And then for the next 24 hours after that, they had like these courses on how to do woodworking and community engagement. And I'm like, I just need to film the Scout. And then, unfortunately, when I learned that like almost every other outlet got a filming slot except for Out of Spec, so I was there for 3 days to not film a video at all, I just left and went home. So, either way, doesn't change the vehicles in any way. So the vehicles look awesome. I mean, I pre-ordered 2 of them. I'm not saying we'll get one or not, but it's just good to reserve the early slot in line. So I reserved both the truck and the SUV. But what's cool, I didn't realize until after, is unlike Rivian, when you reserve either, you can actually change which one you want later on. So I think that's kind of cool. But either way, okay, it was $100, reservation. Everyone does these things. Sometimes they make a difference, sometimes they don't, but it's fully refundable. So I figured let's at least reserve the slot in line. So I had dinner with the chief engineer the first night. That was really the main benefit of being there, because I got to learn about the development process and how it's different from the rest of the Volkswagen Group. And I'm like, how separated are you? Is this a burden to be part of VW Group? And it actually seems like they are fully operating as a separate company, at least as much as possible. The development process does not follow the typical Volkswagen Group development process. This is a much more streamlined, much more simulation, much quicker time to produce a vehicle. So almost following a lot of trends from the China auto production world, where they're like speed and simulation and get things to market quick. But of course, they still have that German quality in them. The guy who's doing this engineered the Touareg, which is notoriously an amazing off-roader that no one knows about. And so he's like quality, durability, all of those things are of super high importance. So I was talking to him about, he just came off of a chassis tuning session. They're going to move a lot of their engineering resources, and they already are, to Detroit, is my understanding. But they're still doing quite a bit in Germany. For example, all the chassis tuning stuff that he came from was at Audi's proving grounds. So there is still a lot of cross collaboration. They can dip into the pool of Volkswagen Group, but then create their own parts if they want to. The most interesting thing to me about this, other than it's like describe a Rivian over the telephone and make it a little bit better, is and maybe it's not a little bit better, we'll have to see, but the charging performance, 800 volt, all that stuff looks great. The craziest part is the combustion range extender option, which I am typically a big fan of, this range extended function, because you can drive 99% of your driving electric. And if you go out into the wilderness, if you tow, if you do something that really stresses the vehicle, which I do a lot, then you don't necessarily have to then have the downsides of a combustion driving experience. You're still utilizing the electric motor. So it still drives like an EV. And so I think a lot of people almost prefer the EV driving experience than they care about what their fuel source comes from. This audience probably is just pure EV people, but I just think a lot of people love the EV driving experience, and here this will allow it to go on longer.
Yeah, it looks to me, Kyle, like they're not dipping into the VW parts bin too much. But what are the pros and cons from your perspective of whether they should be linking back to VW as much as possible? Of course, this will be built in America, 4,000 jobs for Scout. They're, like I mentioned in the intro, really leaning into the Americana side of it. No hesitation in saying, look, this is nothing to do with an ID4. We haven't just stuck a new body on top of it. But what do you think of the sort of the pros and cons of going it alone, almost being a standalone brand? I noticed that sometimes I watch the US car channels, and they're sort of maybe are a little bit down on VW USA at the minute, saying, the VW ID4 kind of got off to a good start, and not as much anymore. VW has a pretty good reputation over here in Europe, Dieselgate notwithstanding. We have a bigger choice of models and stuff like that. So what do you think of that decision, Kyle, to almost distance themselves from the mothership?
Yeah, I think what it feels like to me is all of the Scout marketing team or branding team, they really talk to a lot of existing Scout owners, and we're like, what would these people want if we made it electric? But the problem is there's only like 4 of them left on the planet. So I feel like they've geared almost so much of their marketing communication, this range extender thing, towards the old Scout buyers wanting to buy a new one, and not necessarily the new market that they're tapping into. They certainly got a lot of that here, but it will attract people who want definitely an American brand, which for here, this is a US vehicle built here, engineered here, is at least is the plan. I think they don't want the burden of Volkswagen Group on their back. I don't think it really helps them. Perhaps it helps investors or, people from the outside to say, okay, well, this is a brand with a lot of resources, with a lot of competency and high quality manufacturing. That's really great. But in terms of the engineering, design, and functionality requirements and that whole process, I think it's great that it's separate from Volkswagen. You can clearly see this is running on Rivian software architecture. It has the zonal architecture with their complete UI that looks awesome. So we know it's going to have an awesome, software package to it. And it's going to have dual lockers. So it'll have like off-road cred, great software, great looks. I don't know what the material final selection will be, but like everything's kind of shaping up here to be awesome. And the price is lower, significantly lower than a Rivian, at least at starting price. So they're saying it'll start at, under 60, so 59,999, I'm sure. And that's, we're not that far away. We're about 2 years away from seeing these on the road. They'll launch in 2026 as a 2027 model year.
Yeah. Tom, before I come to you, I'll throw a few more stats out at the audience as well. Body on frame, not a unibody kind of thing, but with mechanical lockers on both sides. Solid rear axle, obviously not on the, there's going to be a quad motor, but I guess for otherwise, there'd be a solid rear axle, 91.6 inches wide. A Hummer is 86.7 inches wide. Dom's got the dimensions on screen right now, if you're not looking on a small mobile screen. The Terra's bed is 5.5 feet long. I think it'll have and it's an extension to that as well. A very large frunk with a slide-out seat. It didn't look as big as a Ford F-150 super duper mega wonderful power frunk, but it has got power inside it. 120 volt outlet and USB-C, bidirectional charging capable. Didn't say what they mean by that though. In 2 years' time, we'll see where the world is in 2 years' time for what bidirectional means. 240 volts outlet as well, and 120 volt outlet and USB-C in the rear. I don't know if Dom showed it on screen yet while I was searching around looking at the comments and what have you, but the actual charge port, the charge flap, when it lifts up, has got the NACS connector, J3400, and next to it, the power outlets as well. So it's quite a long letterbox style flap that lifts up, and then you power out. So you haven't got to enter the truck or open the bed or anything like that if you want to get external power. And the Traveller, the SUV, gets a split tailgate as well, obviously all powered. Looks very good. Tom, you're a multiple truck owner, combustion and EV over the years. Does this tickle your fancy?
Yeah, like what I see so far, I'd like to first start off by saying I apologize to Scout because I was invited to this event. I accepted the invitation. They bought me tickets, reserved my hotel room and all this stuff, and I canceled on them like 2 days ago. So that is not the right thing to do, but it was unavoidable. I had some family medical issues to take care of, so which they understood, but I really hate to do that where they buy your ticket and all that stuff, and then last minute you're like, oh, by the way, forget about all that, sorry you spent some money on me, I'm not coming. So apologies to Scout. That's not what it's the first time I've ever done that, and so sorry. I would have liked to have been at this event. I might have been able to convince Kyle to hang around a little bit longer and stay with me so we could see the unveil, but in any event, sorry about that. So yeah, like what I see so far, it is still, I'd like to remind everyone, this is still early on. We're 2 years or so from seeing this. Well, we talked about pricing. We all know what's happened when people announce prices 2 years before a vehicle gets into showrooms. That could be radically different when this vehicle launches. I hope that isn't the case, but we've seen, everybody promised a $40,000 electric truck. And when it came to market, like nobody could even deliver a $50,000 truck. So, it was, let's see what happens with the truck, but I love it. One thing that I don't think Kyle mentioned, which I honestly, it's my favorite thing about it, which is kind of like niche, is the bench seat. I love that option. You can get a bench seat option, which is so cool. Like, when's the last time you get a big bench seat in a cool vehicle like this? So that's really something that I like, and the fact that the vehicles are so wide, you're going to have a ton of room up front there. So that's cool of Scout to bring that back. But so far, everything, I mean, charging, I like the EREV option. It wouldn't be something that I would get. I have different driving uses than, say, Kyle does, where he goes a lot further, tows all the time. It should be an option for people that want it. And I'm sure that people that don't need it will get the truck with it thinking they'll need it. And then, 4 or 5 years, they'll be like, this truck's great. I'm at 98% on battery use and only I've only driven 500 miles with the EREV out of 33,000 miles. And then my answer to that is, well, then you didn't need it, but people, it makes people feel safer too, if it's their first electric vehicle. And depending where you live, like, where Kyle lives out in Colorado and he goes overlanding and it's far distances between charging stations and so forth, it makes a lot more sense than, say, somebody on the East Coast like myself, where, I can drive to 9 states without having to stop and charge.
Yeah.
So, it's a different thing. So we need to make the vehicles work for everybody. And EREV works. I had it with my little i3 back in 2014. Worked for that on the times where I need, and even with that, with a tiny little 22 kilowatt hour battery pack, I was at like 94% battery. And only 6% of my miles were with the range extender. So, it's horses for courses. And look at that interior if you're watching on YouTube. I love that. That looks awesome. I'd love to have a bench seat in my Lightning. I swear. I know that center console is useful and everything, but that's so cool, that bench seat. I definitely would have ordered, if my Lightning had the opportunity to have a bench seat, I would have ordered one. Talk about ordering. I didn't order one of these. It's not that I don't like it. It's just like, I have so many reservations right now. I don't even know the vehicles I have reservations on. I've stopped myself from reserving vehicles until I figure out what I might want. And it's not the worst thing in the world if I have to wait, 6 or 8 months after the vehicle launches before I get it, if I really like it when it comes. So, but yeah, I like what they've done so far. I think what we've seen, it checks, pretty much all the boxes. I think they look cool and they have, great specs and a good estimated price right now. So good on Scout. And as far as the dealer network stuff, like not being under the Volkswagen brand, I mean, I definitely think that a huge part of that was wanting to break from the dealer network mold. And you couldn't do that under Volkswagen brand. Like if they were going to sell it at Volkswagen dealerships or whatever, all of the manufacturers want to figure out a way to do direct sales. They all do, but they can't. The established brands can't. Ford tried to, and they got so browbeaten that they had to give it up. The dealer lobby and the dealer laws in this country are so strong. I don't know how eventually I think they're going to break them down, but it's going to be bit by bit. And this is a way for Scout that can start fresh and say, look, we're a new brand, and they can develop, direct to consumer sales models. They're going to have like the other startups, mobile service. They can do, I think they said 80% of the service can be done outside of a service bay. This all saves the brand money and allows them to, sell vehicles at a more competitive price. Tesla, for instance, has such a price advantage over the legacy brands. Ford puts it at, I don't know, $6,000 or something, or $5,500, $6,000 over them as per vehicle, just because of how they are light and not a big bloated company. And this is the way to do a new brand like this. You start it like a startup. Well, it is like a startup, even though it's kind of not. It's Volkswagen. But bring in all people, start it like a startup, and run it like the startup's doing. That's a huge plus for them. I'm much happier that they're doing it that way, as opposed to this being like a Volkswagen sub brand sold at Volkswagen dealerships. Nice, clean, fresh start. It's an American brand. Yes, it's owned by a foreign entity, but so is Dodge and Jeep. And nobody seems to mind that. They still consider them American brands. And everything I saw so far looks pretty good. But
yeah, made in the Made in the USA, battery sourcing, all that kind of stuff, full federal tax credit if it's still around. Like I say, at the time, it's a long way away. Before we ask for Dom's thoughts, what's this? Why didn't you? Hang on, don't take my comments off screen. I'm going to put that one back on. Hang on. Many happy returns, though. Is it today?
It is today, actually. Today's my birthday.
Happy birthday!
It's the weirdest timing. Yeah, this is the first time I think we've ever had a show on my birthday. So,
Oh man!
thanks everybody. Appreciate that. It's very generous and everything. Adam, thank you so much, and my sister Robin, thank you.
Yep.
And Adam, there's that one there as well. Adam, that's
Yeah.
really generous. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm still in my
Happy birthday,
50s.
Dom.
That's what I'm thankful for this morning.
We'll send you a case of beer to enjoy.
Ooh.
Send you a case of British ale or something for you to enjoy. And happy birthday, man. That's so cool. All right. So are you still a trucker? Did you get rid of your truck? You still got your truck?
Me? Oh yeah. It's in I haven't driven it in like over a year. It's been sitting there. I have to start it up every once in a while to keep it from seizing up or whatever. Keep the battery fresh.
Well, that means that means 3 or 4 of the hosts are truck owners on this podcast. So well qualified to say, is this did this give you a birthday surprise yesterday?
Well, it seems to be a lot bigger than my truck. So I have like a Ford Ranger, which I can reach across and kind of grab the passenger side if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. But is this? So Kyle, did you see these like at all? Oh, okay. Because it didn't look that big to me. But then when I looked at the specs, like 91 whatever inches, like how could it be that wide? Really? Is it going to be that wide?
Well, it seems significantly bigger than Rivian. I mean, you have another foot of bed space, and you also have, look at that rear door is much longer than what a Rivian is. So I think it's going to be, I guess I'm really curious to see how the heck they got the starting price that low.
That's the other thing I wanted to raise up. So that interior, especially in the Traveler, the SUV, the interior is so nice. It's very like Rivian-esque. I find like there's some of the elements they've used is very much what Rivian has done as well, and it looks great. I can't hate on them for kind of leaning in that direction, but I don't know how they can get the costs down to like below 60,000.
They'll have like a really decontented version is my guess. So maybe small I don't know.
Just small battery, I'm thinking.
Yeah. And then, they'll probably be 80 grand for the one everyone wants. I think we should just go in with 80 grand in our heads. That way we're not disappointed in 2 years when it turns out to be 80 grand either way.
Right. Yeah. But I love it. So I put a message out yesterday just to see what the reaction was. And man, there's a lot of positives. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, some 10s, a lot of 8s, but nothing. People were really kind of, for the most part, I think they've done what they needed to do. I think they really needed to get a compelling design, something that really drew people in, and not care whether it's like electric or not. It has to look cool, and man, I think they've really done it here. And to Tom's point, so growing up I grew up in rural New Brunswick, and so back in the day when there was bench seats in all the pickup trucks, we didn't have there wasn't bucket seats or whatever. That's what we would call them back then in pickup trucks. So yeah, there'd always be, you see somebody and their dog sitting right beside them, or their girlfriend or wife or their husband or whichever, it's always like the two, you have a place for 3 people and those 2 are going to be like right side by side. It's like kind of romantic. So I kind of really love that this come back. They started putting like, bucket seats or individual seating in center consoles and trucks, and bench seats just like disappeared overnight because they're not that. If you look at the 2 different seats in the truck and the SUV, the SUV seats are nice and molded and look very comfortable. I don't think the bench seats are going to be as comfortable or as nice an experience in some ways, but I think like some of us older folks who kind of remember those days, or maybe they really appeal to some younger people too. But I'm really glad there's the option. I think it's pretty cool. Yeah.
No, I agree. And the only thing I'm concerned with is losing that center console functionality, because it's really nice to have a nice big center console in a truck. There's so much stuff. Mine's filled, and that would be the only thing that would hold me back a little bit. Like, where am I going to put all my stuff? But I love the bench. I still think I would get it with the outfit with the bench. Just the whole retro feel of it just works.
But the center console is great. It's got refrigerated cool box under the armrest. Like, how cool is that?
Is that an option, or is that going to come standard on a certain trim level?
That's a good question.
Gotta be an
Under
option.
$60,000, I'm not sure how they can include
no way
all
under
those kind of bells and
$60,000.
whistles. But plush knee rest for added comfort. I mean, that's kind of a small detail, but very much appreciated for people like me with long legs. They kind of lean them against the side console, whether you're in the driver's or passenger seat. So that's kind of nice that they're thinking about that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm really loving the design, and I don't know. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how it goes with them as far as like getting up to speed. They're saying 2027 is when they want to start building them. I can't imagine them selling them, making deliveries before 2028. But I guess anything's possible. But I think that's what we'll be watching for.
It seems like it does seem like a long way off in a world of Chinese EV makers that entire brands. Xiaomi didn't exist as an EV company a year ago or something, and they're not on their second model and now building their second factory. And it does seem weird that we're in 2024 and we are talking about all of the resources of Volkswagen Group, all of the resources of that $5 billion deal with Rivian for software and architecture, and I see certain comments on the internet about how successful or not that may be, and whether it was what vehicles it'll appear first. And we won't appear first in a Scout if we're 4 years away from actually those vehicles being on the road, and and a huge investment. And in a world where we'll talk about Jim Farley loving his Chinese car later on the podcast, in a world where entire businesses can be on their third, fourth, fifth vehicle in 4 years' time in China. Just the speed of doing stuff, and we were all impatient, right? We all want new toys to play with. So, very cool. And any more comments on the Scout? If not, we will move on.
It's just people talking about how the roofs used to be removable and they aren't in this one. So I kind of, I don't know if that's a miss exactly, but they do have on the SUV it's a cloth roof that kind of retracts, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I saw that. It rolls. The canvas fabric rolls back. Looks very cool. All right, that all looks good. We can move on. We've got a lot to get through today because for a little while, we lost Kyle for a couple of shows. Don was on the road, at least for one of them, I think, and we couldn't talk about it at the time. And now we've been talking about the reason that those guys were incredibly busy with some massive projects. The i90 Surge. Now, I know Dom has got his finger hovering over a video that we can play you. There are rumors that the first installment may be out sometime soon. Well, we'll ask somebody who knows the answer to that. Carl can tell us when we can watch the first episode. But Dom, I think you've got a trailer handy. Can we have a look at that?
Let's go.
Hello and welcome to another out-of-spec road trip race. We're crossing the country again in the I-90 Surge. 10 cars with 30 people are heading from Seattle to Boston on Interstate 90, the longest highway in the USA. We'll cover over 3,000 miles through 13 states. It's a genuine battle of team optimization, charging infrastructure, and car capabilities to see who can road trip from coast to coast in the fastest legal time possible.
So we just got pulled over.
With speed caps in mind, it's up to each car to strategize best. We have the new Porsche Taycan with amazing charging, the Lucid Air with incredible range, Tesla Model S with fantastic software, the new Tesla Model 3 with magical, affordable efficiency, the Hyundai Ioniq 6 with a flat charging curve for perfect road tripping, the BMW i7 with luxurious comfort, the Genesis G80 Electric, which I forgot was a thing, and the Mercedes EQS balancing comfort, software, and good charging. These will all gauge the competence of modern long-range electric sedans. But we also have a very early Tesla Model S 85 to see how far we've come, and a gas car, an Acura TLX, to see how far we have yet to go to compete with good old-fashioned petrol. So join us in the wildest challenge we've ever done to see who gets first, who gets last, and all the insanity along the way.
This is going to be something we never forget. We're not really racing at this point.
Oh, the i7's going for the race.
We're going in for the pass already.
That's a nice scenic overlook. We have all the time in the world. Fresh off their police encounter.
Oh, it's been a full-on race.
What are you doing? No, stay back there, you jerk.
And we have pissed off absolutely everyone around us.
333.
Of course, here in the old Model S, we have no lane keeping and no active cruise control.
William, shit just got real.
And just like that, our confidence is starting to wane here.
Do you think we'll make it?
Yeah, I guess so.
I feel great. I think it's the chocolate milk and gas station food.
We've broken into the snacks.
Buffalo Wild Wings. We've turned into team food.
So guys, listen, this Taycan is a beast. It's just game over.
The Lucid at the double back.
It's our chance.
Superchargers at 1 a.m. are the place to be.
Charging power reduced. We got throttled.
We've been on 0 for a long time. Oh my.
Stop charging again?
Oh no, we're having infrastructure issues.
I must say, the Badlands, they weren't that bad.
Processing. Please wait. Please wait.
And it's telling us battery critically low.
So I like to just start things out with a very basic question. Trump or Kamala?
This one's completely dead. We've just hit 40 kilowatts. I don't know why we've derated.
So both of the 350s are completely down.
This one is derated to 80 kilowatts.
All right, foot is on the floor, and we are doing 28 miles an hour with a slight uphill, losing speed. Hazards are on.
50 miles an hour on the freeway. We're 30 miles an hour under what we should be going.
If it continues to get worse, we may want to try an AC charger.
Okay, we are resetting the driver assistance system through service mode.
We are getting screwed by this traffic.
Oh man.
Almost no chance.
This is the I-90 Surge.
Don't just move. Wait.
Amazing. I'll never get that.
Well, we cannot wait to see all of the episodes and to see how bad the Badlands were. According to that expert Dave, not that bad, but we'll wait and see. I'll make my own mind up.
This
Wait a
is
minute, that's
genuinely
just
the
a
first
trailer?
time- Yeah, just a trailer.
I
This
thought that was
first
the whole
time we're
video.
sharing.
No.
Well, we have 4 episodes, so a lot of people are like, "When is this thing going to air?" So tomorrow, Saturday, we'll have the intro, that's where we run through all of the cars, the route, the speed caps, the rules, all the other stuff. So that's not really part of the racing, but we just figured let's make that a whole video, and then that'll go. Then every week for the next following 3 weeks, so a month's worth of content on our Out of Spec Motoring channel. That's when you'll see, probably 3+ hour long episodes. Now, for everyone who doesn't want to watch all of that, which surprisingly a lot of people do, the longer the better in terms of our numbers. So Jordan's editing this, but I did tell him, like, leave a lot in there, like, don't cut too much. We might turn this into like a 1 hour digestible full package later on that we'll share if we do that. So anyway, the I-90 Surge, Dom, I mean, we're not giving away results. We're not saying what happens, but I think everyone can get the idea of how really crazy that event was.
Right. I like when they introduces all the cars on this trailer, right? And it's given all these, wonderful performance details of all these cars until it comes to the one I'm in. It's like, I forgot it even exists. It's like, oh my God.
That was genuinely true. All of us forgot about the G80 electric. That was
sure. I get it.
No one remembered that car was a thing.
And maybe they should. And maybe they shouldn't remember that the car was a thing. We'll see tomorrow.
I liked it a lot more than you did.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I thought the charging was great. You charge it to 80% every time.
It does charge really great.
I tried the driver assistance. I didn't think it was that bad. So, yeah, I thought it was a nice car to cruise in.
Yeah. I think we give our thoughts really well, especially after driving it for all that time. At some point in one of these episodes, there's a section where probably all the teams really, talk about the cars and what their impressions after driving them over, 3,000 miles. I forget how far it is.
Yes, 3,030 something miles, but then detours for charging. So it really was like 3,200 miles for most cars, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah. So it's amazing watching this footage because it's been a few weeks now, and so it's kind of it's kind of crazy. It was pretty intense.
The next time you do a long cross country trip like this, Kyle, and I know you're going to do another one at some point down the road, I know you say maybe not, but you will. I want to start halfway with a BZ4X. Okay, whatever. If it's a 2,000 mile, I want a 1,500 mile head start. Hook me up with a BZ4X, and I want to see if you guys can catch me.
On that note, I actually just was driving a BZ4X for the last week, and they have drastically improved that car.
Oh, there we go. That's great.
It is still not competitive in any way, but it is drastically improved.
It's still terrible.
It's still terrible, but it's much less terrible.
Wow.
It's like, actually, so, I mean, we could talk about it later on. Our videos are...
No, I mean, we could talk about it now, though. They're giving them away, like, are they, so they really chop the prices, so what do you get now?
In Colorado, everyone gets the all-wheel drive because, interestingly, they give the all-wheel drive a slightly bigger battery. We get the CATL battery, but a little bit worse charging. And the last BZ4X I tested, I had a couple of them, were 2023s, I think. And now I have 2022s were the last ones I tested. And I could never get more than like 85 kilowatts. And then it took 5 hours to go 0 to full because at 90-something%, they would go to single-digit kilowatts. And at 95, it would go to 1 kilowatt.
Amazing.
And it was almost impossible to drive this car. Now, it goes like 0 to 100 pretty quick. And it's like, I don't know, it's like significantly improved in the 10% challenge. Still last place, but significantly improved. And they've really enhanced the cold weather charging performance by adding additional heaters and additional cooling loops to get the battery warmed up, but still no preconditioning. And so like there's still like a lot of stuff. But all I will say is it's still bottom of the pack, but it's much farther closer to some of its competition. And like if you're coming from a Bolt, the BZ4X is now a much better car.
Well, that's great to hear. Oh, Tim Oliver is asking how long before the t-shirts go on sale?
T-shirts are on sale. You have yours, right? There you go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Also, you can get other out of spec t-shirts. Don't trust the BMS.
That's amazing. All right, you can go and find those links online. Actually, when that trailer goes live, the link to the merch will be in the show notes on the Outspec channel. Jordan points out 30 people and their cameras, 3,000 video clips, 40 hours of footage, and 1 terabyte of data. Sounds intimidating, but we want to see all of it. And that's I've said this before on the podcast. I use my watch later YouTube because I pay for YouTube or whatever it's called now, but the monthly thing to get rid of the adverts, and it still pays the creators when you do that. And that's now my telly. Like I've cancelled Netflix now just because I had Amazon Prime and Netflix. I'm just watching YouTube all the time, but proper YouTube programs, and so I'll just put this into my watch later, and then when I sit down and choose to watch an hour and a half on the big lounge telly, I'll just cast it to that. And I love this. The longer the better. This takes the place of movies now for me. So great YouTube content like this. So I can't wait to see it. But make sure everyone gets ready for the first installment, the intro at least. I'm looking forward to that. All right, so we can move on. Go ahead, Dom.
I was just going to say, people are suggesting that we make a Netflix series out of this, Kyle.
Yeah, but we made a YouTube series. What difference what platform difference does it make?
Exactly.
I don't know.
You can watch it all on YouTube.
I'd rather see it on YouTube, but
yeah, me too.
But there we go.
True.
So yeah, that's awesome. And Anthony says, out of spec motoring is the new Top Gear for me. Good times. Yeah, I love it. I completely agree. It's motoring content, and because our Top Gear, one of the three, obviously the 3 presenters left to go the Grand Tour, and there were 3 new presenters, and one of the new presenters, a very famous cricketer over here, got quite badly injured actually, and so they've cancelled Top Gear. So we don't have any motoring, and you could argue whether Top Gear was a motoring program in the end or not, but it was the closest we had to motoring shows. That's been cancelled. And, the UK really doesn't have, I don't know about the US anymore, but we don't have any motoring shows on what you would call TV, broadcast telly. And so the Grand Tour's cancelled, or it's finished, and that's going to come back, they say, with different presenters. But yeah, YouTube's absolutely where it's at for long form content. I love it. All right. Now, we've talked about the 10% challenge. Let's talk about another challenge. This time, the hogback challenge. Now, if you're new to this, it's not a phrase that you'd find in the Kama Sutra, but the hogback challenge is something that Kyle likes to do with what? It's the hogback challenge is something that Kyle likes to do with his out-of-spec buddies to test cars to their limit on autonomy, and this time you went for one of the best. Now, Mercedes, I think, have been very quietly getting on with getting approval for certain bits of roads and things like that with their level 3, hands off, eyes off, but you've got to be in the driver's seat ADAS system where they take on the liability for anything that happens, and updates to that system now with, speakers in the back to hear sirens approaching and all those kind of things. It's brilliant technology. What were you doing here, Kyle, with the Mercedes-Benz EQS?
It didn't have the level 3 system. So this was just the standard EQS system that like 99% of the cars have. Only very, very few of them have the Drive Pilot functionality. And you can tell by the LiDARs in the front grille. And to be honest, I'm not even sure if you can spec it yet, or if it's just on their cars, or I'm not totally sure. Anyway, so we just ran a bunch. So you have a bunch of hogback content coming, bunch of driver assistance testing rolling. Actually, I think today we're putting up the Macan hogback, Macan EV that will go up. And anyway, the short story is the Mercedes is now top of the leaderboard. So had, and that's just for now. Wait until the i7 comes out, and wait until we just got, I think, 12.5.6 or some, whatever the newest FSD is. One of my buddies just got on their car. So we're going to steal that maybe even today and go run that. But basically, we're seeing this rapid improvement in driver assistance over the last few years. And that's sort of how long we've been doing this test. And it's been really cool to see generations of cars do better. Some things get worse. And the Mercedes, at least at the time of this recording and at the time that anyone's watching right now, is the top of the charts in driver assistance.
Brilliant. That's always good to see all those different tests that you run and how they change over time as well, like the 10% challenge. So Lucid and the Road Trip King Porsche Taycan, you've also been doing those in the 10% challenge, and both acquitting themselves very well.
Yes, well, everyone, the whenever we bring up Lucid, someone brings up Taycan. Whenever we bring up Taycan, someone brings up Lucid, because you really do have a car with the best range. Without question, the Lucid Air Grand Touring on 18-inch wheels, which is the car I've been driving, luckily, for the last while. And we're about to finish up with it. So we're about to do our final review on the Lucid Air GT. That car has been truly incredible. It went over 510.5 miles at 70 miles an hour. We, of course, used it for the I-90 Surge. We've really used this car for a bunch, and it's been incredibly impressive. It's quiet. It handles amazing. It's incredibly comfortable. It's a nice, overall package. However, the charging performance has been one thing I've been complaining about since day one. And it's not to say it's terrible, but in terms of a C rate, it kind of matches what a Model 3 does. And we've complained about charging on that as well. And so I'm like, come on, that's the one thing it's missing. So on a road trip, everyone thinks, who's maybe not into electric cars, oh, the car with the biggest range is the best car for a road trip. And if you're taking a small to medium-sized road trip, maybe 800 miles, 500 miles, somewhere around there, certainly this car can do it. Most of people's driving on a single charge. That's a key advantage. The range does help. However, when you're on a trip, like how we consider road trips, which is actually going places, then you have to balance that full charge range with the recharging efficiency. So the point of our 10% challenge is to look at, when you get to a charger, how many minutes of charging, 15 minutes of charging, I should say, how effective is that time in 15 minutes to get you down the road? So every car gets to a charger at 10%. The reason we do that is because that's probably where most people would pull in to a charger on a road trip, regardless of battery size or capacity. People think, 10%, I'm getting low, which still in the Lucid's like a full charge in my smart car. But still, they're going to stop there at 10%, charge for 15 minutes, and then go 80 miles an hour on a road trip. That's what we simulate. And when we did the Lucid, it came second place, only to the Porsche Taycan Sport Turismo. And I ran that car back in Germany, and it wasn't even a perfect charging session. So we knew Lucid had great range, but Taycan's charging performance offsets that full charge range and efficiency of the Lucid because it can onboard so much power. But still an impressive result. If you're looking for a great comfortable road tripper with a ton of interior room that Taycan is severely lacking, then no question, Lucid is the answer. But on the same night, we ran the Taycan because everyone talks about these two cars side by side. So we, Ryan drove the Taycan, I drove the Lucid, and this car smashed and broke the scales. Nearly 200 miles at 80 miles an hour after 15 minutes of charging. The Lucid was 154 miles. So it's about 40 miles, because I think Taycan was 190 something, but about 40 miles farther in this test. It onboarded 77 kilowatt hours in 15 minutes in comparison to the Lucid doing mid 50s. So just absolutely amazing. And, we'll see if that translates to the I-90 Surge, but at least here in our 10% challenge, no question, once you exhaust the range of your vehicle and you're charger hopping, which is how 90% of my time is spent in an electric car, honestly, is road tripping charger to charger. To some people, this does not apply. This test doesn't matter, but to many it does. The Porsche is king, no question, of road tripping.
It really sets the standard, I think, for future vehicles. So that's what the other manufacturers really need to aspire to. I think the charging performance.
Yeah, the Porsche got it right. I mean, they the point of the new Taycan was fast traveling, and their marketing terms were higher, faster, farther, and they did it. It's got good range. We're going to test the range here pretty soon. It's got incredible charging performance, which is what this thing is all about. And I love that. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just a subscribing thing, but like I would happily give up range for crazy charging in most cars. And so just let me juice this thing up. And yeah, and the Taycan's got it all right there. Just wish it had more interior space. I mean, if you're comparing the two cars, I could still see many people choosing the Lucid over the Taycan, and vice versa, depending on what you're interested in. But I think the Taycan in this test and this category is the ultimate EV road tripper without question.
Good stuff. All right.
Tom, what do you think about this test? I've never really talked to you about the 10% challenges, because you and I both do range and charging, but we've never discussed this sort of combining them.
Yeah, I think in many ways it's more important than a simple range test. Like we do the 0 to 100% to 0. This is super important. So yeah, I love that you do these. The thing is, when you talk about road tripping, I always have in the back of my mind that kind of road tripping is not normal road tripping, like for most people. In my thought process, road tripping, where most people will drive from point A to point B, won't exceed much more than one DC fast charge stop, unless, because most people will fly. Like modern cars, let's say we talk about the Lucid Air. You start off with 100% charge. You can drive a solid 425 miles before you have to stop. People aren't going to go 510 like you and white knuckled for the last 40 miles. So let's say you drive 425 miles, you stop. Now you're at like 10% or whatever. 20 minutes will add 300 miles, 285 miles, something like that of range. So now you're at 650 miles. I don't know how many people regularly drive further than that. So when you talk about what makes, like you said earlier, a good point, like I'll take faster charging over longer range any day. I wonder if there'd be a way to poll people, and not just our X followers, because they're so dialed into what we preach, faster charging, they'll fall in line with that. I think it would be great if there's a way to poll people that really don't really know EVs, and say, look, I can give you a 500-mile car that takes 40 minutes to charge, or a 400-mile car that takes 20 minutes to charge. Which one do you want? And it'd be real interesting to see what people how they respond to that. The bottom line is there is no right answer. Right for you, you'll take 50 miles less range and twice as fast charging every day of the week. But that doesn't fit into everybody's suit. So the long story is your 10% challenge is awesome. absolutely need to do that. As I said when we first started this discussion, I think it's more important than our 100 to 0 range tests. You know what I mean? So continue doing those. They're absolutely incredible. And lead with those. As like a very important metric to use. So I refer people to them all the time, and I've had people ask me to do them, and I'm not doing them. Kyle does them, and he does them great. I'm not going to improve upon on that. So why would I even bother? That's my thought about this. We need all different. We need cars that charge really fast, cars that go really long, because everybody has different flavors.
Yeah, the way I look at our testing, especially like on the range test, it's not a customer representative use case of a vehicle. I think the 10% challenge has its place more than just road tripping too, because I think a lot of people do a lot of daily driving. And if you just need to quick top up at the charger, how far can you go after that? So I think there's other use cases beyond just the road trip. However, a lot of our testing, like I mentioned, is similar to like a Nürburgring lap time. It's something we all love to talk about. GT3 RS, whatever, the new Mercedes AMG 1 629 around the ring. I could not drive the AMG 1 6 minutes and 29 seconds around the ring. It's cool to know the car could. And so much of our purchasing decisions, 0 to 60 time, absolute maximum performance, or cargo space, or maximum seating, are based off of features that we very rarely use or almost never will use, or maybe don't even have the capable of getting the car into a scenario that can do that. So, I think, use the 10% challenge as a gauge. Some people may or may not make a buying decision off of it, but no question, it is something automakers need to optimize their cars in terms of fast traveling, I think, which is why we make such a big deal of it.
Absolutely. And I will remind you that this entire country in which I live is 603 miles from the very top to the very bottom as the crow flies, Land's End to John O'Groats. If you go from the very bottom of our country to the very top of Scotland, then 600 miles is it. And if you want to go any further, you've got to put it on a train or a boat and get over to continental Europe. So there's only so much range I could possibly need.
Also, I just thought about this, Martin. When I'm in Germany, this is an even bigger topic because you're not getting the range ever because you're booking it if you want to be an idiot. So then it's all about charging. It's all about charging. As fast as I can. Can it handle the thermals and can it charge quickly?
Absolutely. It's all about the charging, and
equivalent to the rest of the world. 3 people live in Germany, so but still, I love that Porsche developed their car to work there, which is high speed driving, high speed charging, great thermal management, and it translates when you want to push the car here. That it just handles it perfectly.
Yeah, that Taycan set the benchmark when it was first out, and it still is. The new version's brilliant.
Yeah, and to continue to compliment Taycan. Porsche did such a good job with that vehicle. It is such an amazing vehicle to drive. I remember when I did the first driving of the Taycan, I was really worried when we had the first drive. This was years ago, before it came out. Flew us over to, actually it started in Copenhagen, Denmark, and drove up to Hamburg, Germany. And I was so worried that it was going to feel like a numb, appliance, like here's Porsche. This is their first EV. Everybody raves about Porsche for their driving experience, the road feel. When it just feels, different than other cars. I mean, quite honestly, I would much rather drive a Porsche daily than like any of the supercars out there, like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or any of those. Much rather drive a Porsche. And so I was so worried that it was going to feel like I was driving a Hyundai. And I was so happy to report, like after the first half an hour or 45 minutes of driving on these winding roads, like, holy shit, like this is a Porsche. Like this, it has the road feel, and they've improved upon it. It's better now than it was when it first launched. And in addition to the charging and range that we've been talking about right now, just giving Porsche props. The Taycan is an amazing vehicle, and I've said this more times on this podcast. You tell me, Tom, you can have one EV to drive for the next 5 years. You can't change your car. This is it. I'm going Taycan. I just don't know which variant I'm going to take. And, that's, and you guys know I've driven everything out there, and I would take a Taycan.
I think I'm different. I think I would take a Lucid. And except for one thing. I just need a better ergonomic seating position. I don't fit in the Lucid, and it doesn't go low enough. The steering wheel doesn't come far out enough. In a Taycan, I'm on the ground and the wheel is right here. And so I just, if the Lucid had a better seating position, I think I actually prefer driving the Lucid fast. The Taycan is incredible from a handling perspective and has all this tech, but the Lucid is like honest and has this mechanical suspension that is not overly engineered. I mean, it is in terms of the hardware and tuning, but I mean, not in terms of air with adaptive damper and hydraulic. It does have adaptive damper, but a hydraulic roll stabilization that like Porsche Active Ride has. And like, there's just so much more room in the Air. And there's something, I don't know, the Air drives really well all the time, but I just don't fit in the car that well. And I love the fast charging of Taycan. So I think if the Air had better thermals and a better seating position, I would do that. But I agree, Tom. Taycan Cross Turismo all day. That's the choice.
And number 2 is definitely a Lucid for me. So here you have Kyle and me both singing the praises of the Taycan and the Air, you know, and we don't always agree on stuff with EVs, which is great, you know, and we both have driven everything, you know, from here to there. And those two vehicles are just, both companies did amazing jobs. I'd still take Taycan. I like the road feel a little bit better. I like, you know, I would go either Sport Turismo or Cross Turismo to give me a little bit more room, Kyle. But you know, for sure, it would be one of those.
Yeah, thinking about it now too, like the door handles on the Lucid feel pretty annoying at times, and like some of the tech doesn't always work. Like what stopped working? Our turn signal stopped working on the Lucid the other day, and our like side view cameras. Oh, and the range exchange. I have to complain about Lucid really quick because we relied on Lucid to save 2 cars off the side of the road for a range test, and I used range exchange. The car shipped, it had a range exchange issue. They sent us a new EVSC cable. They said it was a bad cable. We used the new cable. It worked fine up until I had a dead BZ4X on the side of the road and it wouldn't work anymore. For it. And then, you know, I was driving the Macan and the range test, and I'm like, well, I don't know what to do here. So we had the tow truck guy who knows us, who's awesome. He towed our Leaf. And so Mason was in the truck, and I'm like, dude, after you're done with the BZ4X, you're going to have to pick me up in the Macan. But thankfully I timed it where I ran out of charge in the Macan. You'll see it in the video at the top of an overpass, kind of blocking traffic. And I was like, oh, this is really bad. But the Porsche has like a restart function that just gives you a little burst just to move the car out of a dangerous situation. And it was enough for me to coast it into the charger. And then we pushed it back to get it to start charging.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Why are you trying to save the BZ4X? Just leave it there, Kyle.
It's honestly, I have been the biggest BZ4X hater since day one. We gave it all the bad stories. And I think Toyota, I'm surprised they even let us borrow the car. I don't think they knew about it. I think they were just like, oh, okay, car goes there. Great. It really isn't that bad anymore, Tom. It really isn't.
Well, I haven't driven it in a while. I admit that. I didn't feel the need to. Maybe I
actually like the driver assistance. The software's absolute garbage. You know, I would never recommend the car, but it is not a terrible car anymore. It's just bad.
It's quite hard to make a bad EV, but they tried quite hard at hobbling themselves. However, at the other,
Mazda succeeded.
Well, yeah, they did it as well. At the other end of the scale, I think we won't get to Tesla's financial results this week, but it was pretty stellar. They got back to talking about cars, which was awesome, and I think Elon Musk made $33 billion with a B in a single day of trading, I think, this week. Such was the excitement from the market of the Q3 investor call this week, where they actually talked about selling cars, which I was very surprised and happy about, and lowering the cost of goods sold and lowering their cost. I mean, they fired a bunch of people. That's a one-time cost. They realized a bunch of FSD revenue. That's a one-time thing, but still very good results for Tesla this week. I'm not sure how that pitches them as a self-driving company, but I was delighted that they were talking about cars again and selling them. We might not get to that story, but some confusion over a cheaper version that's been widely reported, I've seen. And they mentioned that cheaper models will come in 2025, and so of course, cue everybody writing articles saying, "Oh, the Model 2 or the Model 2.5 is coming in 2025." At the same time, Elon Musk made very clear there will be nothing cheaper than a Model 3 that has a steering wheel and pedals at least. And so I don't know why those outlets wrote those. I think it was an easy headline, wasn't it? Cheaper Tesla models are coming.
Well, I think they're saying that, no, it's pretty much the language, I think, is in cheaper models, but just not a $25,000 car. I don't know. I think it's going to be something cheaper than the Model 3 now, but not.
They even said we will launch cheaper models, but there's
right.
So
$35,000 basically.
Which is the price of a Model 3 long range. How do you get a cheaper? How do you strip more costs out of a Model 3 than
after the incentive, though, right?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, if you're eligible,
right. So this would be like 20 in the high 20s after the incentive, basically.
100%. That is not happening next year. There's no Model 2.5 launching. That's a serious roadmap thing. You have to guide investors on that. You can't just. I know that they don't do product announcements on these calls, but you can't just come out of nowhere and go, "Oh, it's a new car." It's not the way it works. And so that's not coming next year. It was an odd call because he kept calling it the $30,000 Cybercab robotaxi, and then 25,000. He flicked between those two prices, which is the tell with Musk when he's just making it up on the spot because he's just talking about numbers that are coming into his head. But it was so good to get back to cars because the UK version or the European version of that Model 3 long-range rear-wheel drive, 436 miles WLTP. I saw Jordan in the comments saying an EV News Daily challenge, hypermile challenge. Can you go the length of this country from top to bottom on a single charge of a Model 3? I'm not sure I'm doing that, but Jordan, I'll pay for your flight to come over and do that if you want, and hold up the traffic behind. But wouldn't that be a cool challenge to do? A single charge the entire length of a country. Very cool. And Kyle, you have finally said goodbye, not to the long-range rear-wheel drive, because you can't get that in the US, but you do get the long-range all-wheel drive, which, like I say, is at $34,990 after tax credit. Yeah, if you're eligible. But
no, we had the long-range rear drive.
Oh, it was the rear-wheel drive. So was that the LFP pack then?
No.
Oh, so you've said goodbye to it. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so this is the long-range rear drive Panasonic pack. So
nice.
Kilowatt-hour usable. So this is the new standard Model 3, and it's amazing. So we did everything you need to do. I mean, watch the video if you're curious how it went. You'll see it in the I-90 Surge. And shout out to Tesla for letting us borrow this one. That was pretty crazy and a very weird experience borrowing a car from them because it was a little bit hectic at first, just like we need the car. We didn't hear anything. They said they were going to get us one. Like we flew 3 people in to drive this thing, and then at the last minute they got us the car. And then we didn't hear anything from them. So we just did whatever we needed to do. And it was a wonderful machine, long range rear drive, incredible value, incredible range, incredible efficiency, great software, great space, great design, great quality. Everything about it is truly class leading for the price, except for the charging performance, which is our one main issue with the car. We nitpicked a little bit more. We found things we didn't like about it, and you'll see that in this video as well. But just overall, when someone asks me, what car do you need from A to B, how could you not recommend this car? Because if you recommend any other electric car, Ioniq 6, Bolt, Equinox, whatever else is in this price range, you are recommending a worse ownership experience without question. And so this is what I recommend to almost everyone. It's an amazing car, amazing value, and you just can't go wrong with it, I think.
$42,490, and then so it's a $35,000 car with the incentive. And if there's no other incentives,
a lot of people won't qualify for the incentive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would say a ton of people won't. Some people will, of course,
because of income.
Yeah, income, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of people make a lot of money that buy cheap cars.
Oh, I mean, that's how you get a lot of money, I guess. Yeah. You don't spend it all on cars.
We don't typically factor in, or really ever factor in, pricing with incentives. We based it off a $42,000 sticker price,
right? Which is still incredible value. Like that was however long ago that all that nonsense about the $35,000 Tesla, and You know, they never sold it. Well, I mean, they did.
They did for like a few weeks.
If you walked in and stood on one leg and gave them the secret password in person. But the point is, they now offer a much, much better car, insanely better car for 35 grand. Okay, tax credit included, but for 42, that was years ago. Like 5 years ago, when that whole controversy blew up. And so that was one promise that they did deliver on. It's a 42 grand car. It's even with inflation, that's insane value. These cars are amazing. So what you got rid of was the standard range LFP pack, because it would have been without tax credit, pointless selling it because it was end up effectively more expensive. I understand. That's right. Thank you for the comments to clarify that one.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that like won't drive this car because of their political whatever, and you know they hate Elon, and that's whatever. You're just going to have a worse car because of it. That's the only way I view it. I don't know why. I don't think about Tim Cook every time I make a phone call. That's my
I do.
Tell people I don't.
I do.
I'm not here to convince people. Like, honestly, don't buy them. I don't care if you buy them or not. But I just think like if you buy it, it's like it's a better product. It objectively is a better product.
It is stunning. Jordan says back when the $35,000 car was planned, that was the average new car price. Now the Model 3 is less than the average new car price. Wild. It's insane value.
It's amazing how the prices have come down. I remember I sold my used 2019 long-range Model 3 when I got my 2021. I sold it for $49,500. I think it was $49,500 or $49,300. A used long-range Model 3 with 20,000 miles. Think about how the prices have gone down in the last 4 years when everything else in the world has gone up, insanely up, like with inflation. So the Model 3, it's always been a great vehicle. With the pricing it's at right now, it makes it, as Kyle said, it's probably the best value it's the best value of a car that you can buy right now, in my opinion.
Without question.
Yeah. And I think that's, I'll remove the electric, like Kyle said, the best electric car. I think it's the best value of any car you could buy for long-term, overall total cost of ownership. Unless you live in an area where you pay insane, like, 60 cents a kilowatt hour for your electric, which exists out there now. If you can't get a good time of use plan, the overall total cost of ownership, you put a Model 3 up against some of the less expensive, comparable size sedans that are combustion, and give me, 5, 6, 7 year total cost of ownership, the Model 3 is going to beat them all.
Yep. It's the better choice. And a lot of people like to get political or think that, one car makes a difference to some guy. But if you want a better car, you buy the better car. Buy it used if you want to.
Yeah.
That way you're not some people are really, careful with where their money goes and they don't want to support things they don't believe in. Buy a used one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but like you said, there's not that many EVs out there that are more affordable right now. And there's not that many EVs out there that are better than this one, really. Like, I have to say, like, objectively speaking, just driving it, like, not the old ones. I mean, the old ones is fine, but the improvements they've made with the sound and the ride and just the steering feel, it's just a really nice car. Even like we've had like Robert from Aging Wheels, he drove it back from Boston to Denver or whatever, and he's not a big Tesla fan at all by any stretch, if you know him, and he's like begrudgingly, maybe a little bit, but still loving it, really. So there's that.
Absolutely. Road and Turf says, yikes, Martin, not a fan of Musk. You're new here, I see, my friend. No, I'm not a fan of him.
We all have different opinions.
Yeah, I find the man irrelevant these days in anything he says publicly about Tesla, because it's just noise now. None of it is true. I find that fortunately, although some of the big beasts have left over the course of the last 12 months, which has been a shame, but there's new big beasts in their place, and some of them, like people like Wes Morrill, are allowed to go online onto X and talk about things, and those people are far more insightful, because I don't think that they're as likely to BS in terms of how they talk to people. No, I think it's a shame that there's a CEO who just doesn't care about truth or reality and just talks about, oh, we're going to have self-driving cars in 2025, which you won't, because if you look at the crowdsourced data, which they won't release their own data at Tesla, so the best we've got is the crowdsourced data on FSD supervised at the minute. It's about 130, 140 miles between disengagements, critical disengagements. Well, you can talk about March of Nines all you like. You're not going to have a car that drives itself like a Waymo in 2025 at that level of increasing. Talk about maybe 27, 28, 30, and you've got my attention. But so yeah, that's, it's a shame because it detracts from what is an amazing car company, and obviously energy and stuff like that. But the cars are just incredible, and it frustrates me. But fortunately, that can all be ignored. Or
you can just ignore it and just drive the car.
Just ignore it. Ignore the noise.
Did you get a Tesla, Martin?
Not yet. Thinking about it.
You thinking about it? Okay.
Yeah, no, thinking about it, because it's definitely a gap in my ownership. And so good. My current plan is end of line Model Y non-Juniper, because there's no way my wife is driving a car without indicator stalks, and you get used to it on the steering wheel. She's not a car person. She uses a car as utility to get places. She's not driving that in a million years. But end of production from Shanghai before Juniper, early 2025. I think those last Model Ys that come out, I don't think you'll be giving a lot away. I think the new Juniper is going to be incredible. Be very, very, from what we've seen. Rumors this week that 20 cars a week are being made out of Shanghai. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's going to be a massive upgrade to that vehicle. World's biggest selling passenger car. So it's a huge story. I think end of line Model Y, that would do me very nicely.
Go Juniper and add the stocks.
Yeah, third-party add-on, Bluetooth thing.
Then you get everything.
Yeah,
I mean, have you driven the Model Y, Martin?
Yeah,
one?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you like it?
No, I didn't like I didn't like the ride, and they say that they're going to fix the ride in Juniper. So
yeah, so I don't really enjoy the Model Y either. So I'm like, the Juniper is probably going to fix a lot of the stuff that I don't like. So who wants to drive a car they're not happy with, really?
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people are. It says that one of the biggest selling cars in the world, but so a lot of people like it. It's good enough for a lot of people, but I think the Juniper is really going to have to make it like nice stuff for me anyway to enjoy. Hopefully,
it looks the real deal. Absolutely looks the real deal. Tom, you had some discussions this week with Tesla charging on X, because you put a video out, Tom, responding in many ways to a lot of your followers and your viewers about something happening with Magic Docks. What's happening?
Yeah, so I had a couple people message me saying, "Hey Tom, do you know why this is happening? My Magic Dock, I usually use this one Magic Lock location, and it's not working now." And I kind of blew it off because I get a lot of emails, messages, and stuff just kind of corrects itself. Like, it could have been a glitch one day at that one site, but they kept coming. So after about 4 days of people sending me over 30 messages on Facebook, on my channel, of people saying, "Well, listen, this Magic Dock location isn't working. Tom, could you look into it?" I said, "All right, well, let me take a ride to my local Magic Dock and see what's going on here. Maybe this one isn't working either." So I hopped in my Equinox and drove to the closest Magic Dock to my house, and it worked. Okay, so I made a video on it, me just talking about, look, here's this situation. People are contacting me. They're telling me that the Magic Dock locations that they went to frequently aren't working now. And it was just like a last minute thing on a Sunday. I took a drive down this past Sunday, but it worked. So I showed up and I'm like, well, look, it's working here. So I don't know what's going on. But now I see on X, people are posting videos of them going there and it won't release the connector. So I put the video out, and then I tweeted at Elon. Obviously, I vented my frustration of not being able to ask the company what's happening here. Like any other company, I could have sent an email, and within a day I would have gotten response, and they would clearly tell me what's going on. And like, who cares about Tom Malogany if what he knows what's going on? But I can disseminate facts to a lot of people, and that's important for companies to be able to tell the people, like, look, there's nothing going on here. I don't know what these people are reporting. Maybe there's individual problems, or, hey, we needed to take some offline because of XYZ. But anyway, you can't do that. So you have to tweet at their CEO, which I did. Of course, he didn't respond. He was busy Sunday night campaigning somewhere, but we won't put that to the side. And Tesla Charging responded to me, and they said, look, basically, the only problem is some of the new sites weren't configured properly, so we had to configure them before the Magic Dock works. But that doesn't line up with what the people are telling me. People are messaging me saying, look, this was a site that always worked. Now it no longer works. So, and this is what they responded. Some new sites had incorrect access setting at commissioning, which has been rectified. All sites correctly reflected to find us. So it was, as far as I'm concerned, a non-answer. I followed that up by saying, hey, great, thanks for responding. But could you please explain why some of the existing sites that always worked are no longer working? And I have videos of people at sites saying this, like saying, look, I used to come here, now it doesn't work. So I'm not imagining this, but they didn't respond to that second one. So we still don't know what's going on really with it. It's very difficult to get responses. People are still reporting that their local Magic Dock isn't working. Most people are reporting that it worked, because a lot of people went to their local Magic Dock now to say, hey, Tom, I'm here in XYZ state or whatever. It still works great. There's been no interruption here. So it would just be great to be able to get some kind of an answer. Like, look, this is why some of them aren't working. Are you taking them offline? Are you going to replace something? A lot of people speculated that this had something to do with Ford recalling their NACS to CCS1 adapters, because it happened in the same week. So people say, well, maybe Tesla found an issue in that adapter, because it's basically the same adapter. It's just reconfigured so it locks to the Tesla, the Tesla connector. So, which could be the case. I don't think that's the case, because Ford has identified, it was around 4,000 of them being made in a certain batch that didn't work. Like, I have my Tesla NACS adapter and it hasn't been recalled. So, at least not yet. So to me, it would be odd if, I guess, those adapters had to be in the same batch, or maybe the same problem happened twice in different times. I don't know. But that's why, hey, it's great if you could just make a phone call and have somebody explain to you. Like Ford, when Ford recalled this adapter, I sent an email. I said, you need to explain this to me so I can make a video. They explained everything to me. Then I had people contact me and say, Tom, I own a Ford and a Rivian. Both companies sent me adapters. So I have two adapters now. I don't know which one's the Ford adapter. And Ford wants me to send it back. So I reached out to Ford and say, hey, have you thought of this use case here? And the response was, holy S, no, we didn't. Let me get back to you. And because I guess they didn't expect people to have two. I do. I have one from Ford and one from Rivian, but mine doesn't have to be returned. It's not in the batch. So they responded to me and they said, look, here's a phone number. If somebody's in that situation, call this number and they will read, there's serial numbers on them. They'll tell you which serial number to use. So, I mean, that's how you deal with a company. You know, a grown-up company gives the media answers, which we then disseminate to the masses. But you know, it doesn't happen with Tesla. You know, it's very frustrating that I can't. A lot of people look to us for answers. Kyle, me, you guys, for answers in this field, and we're left hanging. And we can't give people the answers that they want if we can't get them ourselves. So it's frustrating. But anyway, that's where we're at with that, Martin. I don't know what the policy is.
Mark Scheller is asking, are electronic adapters still safe to use? Tom, what do you think?
Well, GM is using them as one of their adapters to send to customers that buy them. Mm-hmm. So, right. You know, I've said from the beginning, I believe the A to Z adapter and the Electron adapter are engineered well, and I feel comfortable using them. In fact, I use those before I use the official Tesla adapter. I usually leave those in the garage for my videos and stuff. And my A to Z and my Electron adapters are in my vehicles that I actually charge with, and I've used them multiple times. I'm going to have some information soon, probably next week, with A to Z. That there's going to be an announcement coming up soon, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, they call it the Vortex adapter, don't they? And yeah, very safe to use, and it's just gone into retail as well, so you can get it at Walmart, Home Depot, Best Buy, Lowe's, and Amazon as well, which is not just from the direct from the manufacturer, which I think is very cool. Raises visibility, if nothing else, from the general person walking around Walmart or Home Depot thinking, oh, okay. Right, now, let's talk a little bit about Jim Farley, Ford CEO, did an interview with Fully Charged this week and mentioned that for the past 6 months, have been driving a Xiaomi SU7. SU is Speed Ultra 7. That's the full-size electric sedan. Of course, Xiaomi is the Chinese consumer electronics company. Flew it over for him to drive. Launched back in March and has been quite a sales success. And the goal of increasing it to 20,000 a month from this month. They're about a 6-month waiting list on them. It starts at the equivalent of just over $30,000 US. Always hard to make that price comparison from China to US. But the top spec has 497 miles CLTC. Which is not realistic, but it's not wildly unrealistic these days. And 800 volts battery, 20-minute 10 to 80 charge, and thoroughly impressed Jim Farley about this. It's his job to know what they're competing with, but very interesting that he went out of his way in an interview. CEOs never speak accidentally. They never shoot the breeze. Oh, I shouldn't have said that when the cameras are rolling. They say everything for a reason. And interesting, Dom, that he said this to Fully Charged, that he's been driving it for 6 months, doesn't really want to give it back. It'll go on to somebody else in the company, I imagine. That's that's quite a vote of confidence in the Chinese, Dom. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, first, I would just want to say, like, this car, the Xiaomi SU7, it's pretty amazing, and it's like super popular. They're sold out for 6 months. Like, I think you might have said that. Ramping up production they've been selling over 10,000 a month for the last 4 months, and then going up they're ramping up to 20,000 this month. So just like the speed of which they're building the cars, it's like pretty incredible. And then selling it at this price. So it starts at 30, but I think the one that I got, I'm not sure what. Oops. I've turned something on in my headphones. There's this technology that don't think. Anyway, so I'm not sure which trim level that Jim has here, but I suspect it's the big one, the 100 kilowatt hour battery one, which is probably good for at least 350 miles of range. But yeah, I'm just hoping, and it's a great car, and it's going to be built to a price somehow, but. Yeah, but I guess it really shows him what Ford needs to compete against. It's really, Xiaomi and their partners, they really set the bar pretty high for value, for what you get for your money. It's just like if this was sold in Europe, and it's probably coming to Europe, right, Martin?
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more than $30,000, I'm sure, but still, whatever. If they sell it for 50, I still think that's a decent price, like 50,000 euros. I think that would be fine, depending, I guess, on the trim and everything. But yeah,
interesting. Tom, any thoughts on Jim talking about the Chinese car so in such glowing terms?
Yeah, it's good to see that you have a CEO himself going out and seeing what the competition is. That's. Typically left up to higher level managers and teams to benchmark other products or whatever. Jim, we saw he went over to China himself, spent some time there, brought one of those cars back, and I think he gets it, and he understands that listen, that we are in trouble. The global auto market the Chinese market is going to really expand across the globe. The tariffs and things that's not going to keep them out. They're going to make their way through the market sooner or later, and I don't know how, but they'll be here, and they're making fantastic cars. The Xiaomi vehicle is great. I've driven many other Chinese cars, and that was even a few years ago when they weren't even as good as they are now. The speed at which they're improving their product is just ridiculous. It's off the charts, and how Martin talked earlier about how. They just pump out new cars. I mean, I remember when Xpeng, when I was over talking to them, like their product line was insane. They're like, oh yeah, in 6 months we have a new model coming out. And 2 months after that, there's a new model coming out. And then then we have the next version of our first car. And I'm like, you just launched it in January. And they're like, oh yeah, 18 months, totally new car. Like we that's so foreign to what we're used to. But it's what we're going to have to compete with. And when I say we, I mean US and European automakers are going to have to compete with. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the industry is going to look like in 10 years. I'd love to be able to just, take a quick peek at 2035 and see where we're at. But it's going to be drastically different than where we're at right now, guys. And I've said this for a long time. Some of the titans are going to fall. And I think Jim realizes he could if he doesn't compete with cars like this. I mean, he said he didn't want to get out of the car. When have you heard a CEO of a car company say, hey, I've been driving a competitor's vehicle for the last month and I don't want to leave it. It's better than anything we make. Like, when have you ever heard that? But he gets it. And I think, he should be scared. Everybody should be scared.
So here's what I'm confused about. I love Jim, and I think that was awesome that he said that, and really cool, because genuinely it seems to be a really cool car, and I need to get over to China to drive a bunch of weird stuff, or honestly down to Mexico too. I think there's a bunch of interesting cars too. So that's once. It's like GM month here right now. I have a bunch of Chevys and GMCs and other stuff, but once we're done with all the Ultium month, then we will, then I might go over to China. My best friend Drew, who owns Martian Wheels, is like going to spend the next 6 months in China.
Wow.
And so he speaks fluent Mandarin. His wife is
really?
Chinese. Their daughter, so they're going to go see his wife's family.
Wow.
And he does this every year. He goes back and forth. But this time he's going over for a really long time. So I was like, oh, I'll just go over, stay with them. Alice speaks fluent Mandarin, so does Drew. I can learn everything, and they'll help us with the communication, where we can go. Should be great. So I really need to get over there because it's just going to be so interesting. But back to this Jim Farley topic. What I don't understand is Jim and the Ford team keep saying they listen to customer feedback. They're driving other vehicles. They always say the right things. But whenever I get into a Mach-E or an F-150 Lightning, I'm like, why is this so far behind other comparable vehicles in terms of integration and software? And it's like, is all of the feedback going into the next generation T3, whatever that is to come? Because I think moving the gear stock was nice for 2025 in the Mach-E, but there were more problems than that. So it's like they're just choosing what to listen to from customers, but they're not listening to all of it and rapidly improving the car.
Well, the operative word there was rapidly, in my opinion. They identified software as a huge issue. They know this. And I think it was 2 years ago, they developed this whole new software team. They're working outside of Ford almost. That they have this team working in an office to itself, developing next generation software, kind of like a skunkworks team that had no limits, that you just build this thing ground up. And they hired a whole bunch of people. I actually went to Ford's headquarters in Detroit when they announced this and was able to interview a whole bunch of people that are on this team. And they hired people from Google and Apple and I think even Tesla and, they didn't bring up people from within Ford. They went out and hired what they described as, an all-star team of software and put it together to develop Ford's next generation of software. So I'd like to see this come out. And it was supposed to come out in 2025, which is this year. Now, I don't know if that's still on target for that or not. But before I say, they don't get it or they're not doing the right things, I want to see what they're developed, because I think that's going to really dictate whether Ford's in this or if they're going to be left behind.
Totally agree.
We need software. We absolutely, the software defined vehicles, the big guys, the Fords, the GMs. I don't know if you saw my Ford Lightning versus Silverado. I did a whole bunch of things, 14 different categories. When I got the software, I didn't even spend any time on it. I was just like, it's a tie. They both, are usable, but neither one is good enough for me to spend a lot of time talking about, because they both suck in their own ways, but they're usable. it doesn't frustrate me too much, either one. And I've had a lot of experience with GM software now too, because I own the Equinox. It's the same thing. It looks, the Silverado EV, everything's the same as being in the Equinox. So like, that's one of the things that both companies need to get on board with, because the software, you know, we've talked about
Tom.
this.
I think GM's way better. I got built-in Spotify, Waze. It's snappy. I have an Equinox in my driveway right now. I've been really not too upset. Jordan's going to be the make or break because he's Mr. Techie between all of us. But I don't know. I've got Blazer, Silverado, and Equinox and Sierra. And I'm like, boom, everything works. It's got great route planning. It tells me what state of charge I'm going to get there with. It tells me current state of charge of the battery pack at preconditions. I've got, you know, Spotify. That's my biggest thing. I've got YouTube. I've got everything I need. And like, I wish I could configure it around a little bit more differently, but it's snappy.
I just don't think it's on the same plane as a Rivian, as a Tesla. You know, they have, these are the like, and the Chinese brands that they're going to be competing against, Kyle, which you really haven't had experience to use. And I really didn't either, because they're all in Chinese. So I didn't know what the hell was going on, but I know that they are focusing on software. So that's what these companies have to compete with in the next 10 years is kick-ass software. And that's what makes, like, say, driving a Tesla so, you know, I remember when I got my first Model 3, it was like, wow, this is just so much better than anything else. The user experience, it's something that I never even realized that I wanted in a car, and it makes the driving experience so much better. So, well, how about you talk about GM? How about their app? It's freaking unusable.
That I don't know. I actually just messaged them to
unusable.
try and get it. Yeah.
I try to get the state of charge of my Equinox. I got to sit there for 1 minute and 10 seconds for the fucking thing to update. You know, it's horrible. You know, the Ford's app isn't great, but it's better than my GM app. You know, so yeah. I wouldn't give either company the win with software. I couldn't. I'm with
you on that. Then. That's fine.
Neither one's worthy of a W, in my opinion.
Yeah. I haven't tried the app. The app is such a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's true.
It's so important. And if the app
GM
sucks,
app is
then
the worst. It is the worst. I love the Equinox. I'm going to do like a 2-month owner's review soon. Really, I'm very happy we got it. Put it this way. Matter of fact, buddy of mine, I convinced he's picking his up today. And this is like a total anti-EV guy. Okay. Total, like, you know, he owns like 40 guns. He has more ammunition in his house than some small countries.
Look, like, I love guns and I love electric cars.
Yeah, no, I know. But like, typical total hard, you know, hard right, you know, DZVs or, you know, libmobiles. And, you know, and I told him last night, it was funny when he called me, he goes, I'm pulling the trigger. I'm getting it tomorrow. I go, oh, great. I'm going to call the Obama mobile. I'm going to put an Obama sticker on your car. And he's like, hell, you will, you know, like, so, I mean, but, you know, I love my Equinox, you know, enough to convince a good buddy of mine to get one. But, it's the software is just freaking brutal, man. I mean the app. I won't say the software's not bad. It doesn't make me want to use it. Sure, it's fine, but the app is terrible.
You know, I will agree with you on the Equinox thing. I went to the hub yesterday after flying in from the airport, and I picked up a Blazer at the airport. Chevy sent us 3 cars, so there was like a logistical thing of how do we get them all up there. And I was like, well, leave one at the airport and then bring the other 2 up to the hub if you can. And, you know, we're friends with the logistics guys. They're, you know, you got to be friends with the logistics guys. So anyway, we all played around. I drove the Blazer up from the airport and I was like, oh, this is okay. It's pretty good. And then I got in the Equinox and I was like, oh, I like the Equinox more. I mean, we'll see how that plays out. That's just initial impressions. But I drove the Equinox around. We took it to dinner last night and I'm like, man, Equinox rocks. It's cool.
I'm happy with it.
A lot of discussion about apps here in their chat, but John Check had a question here earlier, Tom, for you. Does the F-150 show much currents going into the battery on the dash on supercharging yet?
No.
Okay.
The software, like that charging software, is brutal for Ford. Brutal.
Right.
I can see it in the app, not on the dash though.
Right. So it looks like, and Cicero mentions, can we do an app review? Because a lot of people are talking about their apps in the thing. Like Pete Glass is saying that the BMW app has slowly improved over 7 years, though.
Yes, but it is pretty good now, the BMW app. It's not Tesla good, or Rivian good, but Tom will probably include this in his review, I would imagine. But Jordan's also doing these software deep dives for us now. They don't get huge views, but he goes through the app, the functionality, everything, and all that stuff. So it will, check out both of our channels.
And I was just thinking about the Tesla app, which is pretty good, but I think it could be better. I think it's time for Tesla to kind of revisit that and see.
Yeah, what do you want to see?
I don't know exactly. It's something, sometimes it takes me a while to find out what I'm looking for. I'm kind of used to it now, so it doesn't take me nearly as long. But for the first quite a while, when I'm getting used to it, because I'm old. I'm especially old now.
Yeah, after today, yes.
Right. So I'm officially old today. It just takes a while for people to catch on and really get all the capability out of it, because you can really do a lot with the Tesla app, but it takes a while to figure out all the things that you can possibly do. Like you do all your route planning where you sit in here and then transfer it to your phone. But if you don't know that, you might not realize it can do that, So
yeah, I think hidden functionality, I don't know. I'm not a good app designer. That's a Jordan question.
Right.
But I think you don't want to overload the user with so much stuff. So
right.
It's good. I think Tesla has they have these main brackets that you can dump into controls, security, service, blah, blah, blah. And to me, that makes sense. It's like when I need to go into service, I select the car in the app, service, boom, there we go. If I need to remote start it, I have it as a hotkey programmed, which is a feature I use all the time. If someone needs to move the car or something, I just boop, remote start. You got 2 minutes to get in and drive it. Every car needs that feature.
I just pulled mine up here right now, and I'm just thinking it takes a while for it to kind of come online too, so I can actually start playing with it. But I kind of wish it has all this real estate up the top showing me the car, so I like to be able to just tap on the back of the car or the front of the car and have the hood open or the front open or the rear gate open, instead of having to dig down into the menu and say, okay, where's the controls, and then you have it over here on this screen once you do that. But why not?
But I think
put that functionality.
It prevents a false tap.
True. There is that. There is that.
Anyway, I just looked. Andreas is driving my Triangle right now. He's got it down to 6%. What the heck, Andreas?
Yes. Yeah, that's good.
Proper.
We like that. Right. Well, we should probably call this one a day. Talking of things that are getting.
Let me just jump in for a second.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned Cybertruck, I actually made a video. I haven't put it out yet. Just 2 days ago. You guys know, you remember when I did the drive to Florida, the race to Florida with Kyle, I had that little pizza oven. So there's a restaurant that sells them and that sells little pizza ovens and the pizzas. It's called the Columbia Inn locally here in New Jersey. Awesome thin crust pizza. Best in the state, best in the area. But the owner is a Tesla maniac. The guy, he's owned like 5 different Teslas. He actually convinced Tesla to put a supercharger location a quarter mile from their location by just badgering them, constantly calling them. But finally, they called them back. They're like, "Okay, you got it. 0.25 miles from your restaurant. We're putting one in." And he owns 2 Cybertrucks, wrapped them, and built custom pizza ovens in the back, big pizza ovens with a pull-out rack. So he'll go to your event and cook you pizzas out of the pizza oven. And so I did a video on his pizza oven, and we ate pizza and everything. It was really great. And then he's like, this thing's got FSD now, and it rocks. He's like, let's do a video. I said, let's do it. So I did a 35, 40-minute drive with the FSD in the Cybertruck, and I have to tell you, it did great. And I've ridden in a lot of FSD vehicles. I was never impressed. There was always at least one incident that would be a bad accident if we didn't intervene. And we drove 30, 40 minutes, no major interventions. He had one intervention in his parking lot where as it was pulling out of the parking lot of the restaurant, it rode over their shrubs. The beautiful flowers, it crushed them as it went out, and he grabbed the wheel quick and pulled it. But it did that. The only thing I'll say, and we'll watch the videos, the only negative, there were 2 negatives. The one, I'm not going to mention the one I think was more serious, but there were 3 times at a stop sign where we rolled up to it and was just like where we went forward and it stopped at the line. But I'm like, why did it wait so long? Like, there's no one in front of us. It could clearly see the stop sign. It wasn't obstructed, but it waited till like the last second to jam on the brakes, and the whole truck rocks back and forward because it's such a big vehicle. That was the only thing that bothered me. There was one other thing, which you have to wait for the video. It did some really weird maneuver, but what the funny thing about it is I would probably do that if I was driving. So I didn't want to be that critical, but it was not the right thing to do. But I was like, because the whole time I'm talking in the video, I'm like, in the past, when I drove the FSDs, it always felt robotic. Like, I want this to feel like a human's driving it. I want it to feel natural, like a human's driving it. So then I'm like, oh, it shouldn't have done that. And then I was like, but I might have done that. Like maybe it's getting too human. You know what I mean?
Well,
but any event, I got to put that video together and have it up next week probably. I might put the pizza video up first, but we'll see. I got a lot
pizza
of
video first. That's the interesting one.
Yeah, we want to see
it
that.
Was really we had a good time. It was a lot of fun.
Amazing.
You know me, pizza and EVs, can't beat that.
Oh, that should be your new podcast.
Yeah,
I
should. That's a good idea. I don't have time for podcasts if I did one, but get a pizza from a different restaurant all the time and eat it as I'm doing the podcast.
I like that. Well, look, Seinfeld can do comedians in cars getting coffee, so Tom can do, New Jersey EV
Plugs
drivers eating pizza.
Plugs and pizza.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, actually. Fred at Electric wrote a similar piece, Tom, to what you said at FSD. He's finding really good, apart from it doesn't drive like an EV driver would, which if there's a red light in the distance, you just use regen and you'll come. There's no one behind you. You're not going to piss them off. You just cruise up to a red light. You get that regen. It's nicer for your passengers as well. And he's saying that that's his observation as well. That
Same as me. Yep.
Very like dangerously aggressive. And a couple
Three
of
times it was dangerously, like the stop was really where stuff would have flown through the car, but most of the other times it did the stop signs well, but those 3 times it was and you'll see in the video, it's pretty abrupt. Like I got thrown forward.
Interesting. Well, there we go. Right.
Well, I've got FSD on my car 12.5.4.1 right now, and I haven't driven it. I haven't tried it out yet. I've had it in my car for like way longer than I should have. So maybe this afternoon I'll try to take it out on my dude loop and see how it does, because I'm really kind of curious.
12.5.5 and 12.5.6 is out now, but not a lot of people have it, I think, but we were at 12.5.5.
Okay, so just ahead of what I have. So, well, yeah, but you have you're on new hardware 2, hardware 4, right? And I'm stuck with hardware 3. So I'm just kind of curious how, people buying like used Teslas or have like the older Tesla, how it'll work for them. So that's basically my angle. Yeah.
Oh, and that was on the call this week as well. If you got hardware 3 and it's not good enough, they will replace it. Not for everybody.
For a charge, or I don't know how
free of charge. Free of charge.
But I want a free of charge hardware update.
Yeah, they did. They said some. So Musk said there is a percentage chance, which means it's definite in his language. There is a percentage chance that hardware 3 isn't good enough for FSD full, whatever the name they give it. So, but then you would get new hardware, because although that now deleted blog post quite famously is stored that says the cars have it that you need. So I don't know what the cutoff would be, or if there'd be a small. Well, they said they'd do it. They said they'd do it for free, but not all the cars. Again, one of the many curiosities of that call that the analysts didn't quiz them on. So yeah, I don't know what the cutoff is, Dom, but some people with hardware 3 were going to get new hardware if they need it. We should call it a day.
Happy birthday, Dom.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Dom.
Thank you.
Enjoy tonight. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. Will be filming, making videos is my weekend. That's the idea. That's the plan.
Sounds like a good weekend.
You can't have more fun than that.
Sounds like a good weekend to me.
I got seat covers. My interior is going to go from black to white.
Very nice.
Yeah,
we look forward to seeing it. We look forward to seeing it.
Okay.
And on that seat cover, let's call it a day. Thank you very much for watching and listening, dear listener. Any comments? The YouTube show is probably the best place to leave a comment. It's quite hard on podcast. You can email us. Obviously, we have a website, batteriesincludedpodcast.com. All the contact details are on there. You want to email us or indeed be a sponsor of this podcast. You can find all the details there. But if you want to leave a comment, YouTube channel is probably the best place. So if you are one of our audio listeners, maybe drop by there and hit subscribe while you're there and leave a comment. And also make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss a show. We do our midweek shows as well, Battery Bargains episodes, finding you your next battery bargain. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon. Hey, Dom, say ciao.
Ciao.